Carolyn was 17 when she died for the third time. But this time, she didn't see angels or a tunnel of light. She floated in a silent void, met a being that wasn't human, and was shown the truth about her life through eyes not of this world. What the alien told her shattered everything she believed about pain, love, and purpose. This is the story of how death didn't end her. It awakened her.
My name is Carolyn. I'm 34 now, a high school English teacher living in Flagstaff, Arizona. But for most of my childhood, I didn't think I'd live long enough to grow up. The house I grew up in looked normal from the outside. Small front yard, chipped paint on the windows, a mailbox that leaned slightly to the left. But inside, it was a war zone. Fear lived in every corner, like a fog we all breathed without noticing anymore. I don't have many good memories of being a kid. What I remember most is trying not to be noticed. At home, being invisible was safer than being seen. My father, Daniel Lynn, didn't need a reason to be angry. Some days he'd come home and sit quietly, drinking a beer, barely saying a word. Other days, it was like a switch flipped. Loud footsteps. Doors slamming. Yelling that came from somewhere deep in his chest. Then the hitting. Always the hitting. He didn't hit to punish. He hit because he could. Because no one stopped him. I learned early to move fast and stay quiet. I memorized the sound of his truck engine, the way the tires crunched on the gravel driveway. That gave me a few seconds to prepare, just enough time to hide or hold my breath. Lana, my older sister, tried to protect me sometimes. She was strong in a way I never was. She talked back. She fought. Once, she even threw something at him when he grabbed me too hard. I remember the sound of glass breaking. He didn't hit her that time, just stared at her like he couldn't believe what she'd done. But later, he made her pay for it. I heard the shouting from my room, heard the thud of something hitting the wall. She left home a year later. I was 13. I didn't blame her, but it felt like being left behind in a burning building. My mother, Sylvia, was there but not really present. She didn't yell or argue. She didn't even look my father in the eye. I used to think she was afraid of him, like we all were. But over time, I realized she had checked out a long time ago. She lived in her own world, one where the rest of us didn't seem to exist. I would come to her with bruises, bleeding lip, once even a broken finger. She'd say things like, "It'll be okay," or, "He didn't mean it," while staring into her coffee like it held some answer she couldn't find. So I learned not to expect comfort. I stopped asking for it. What kept me sane were small things, things I held onto like a rope in deep water. Books, mostly. I read anything I could find. I liked the library because it was quiet, and no one asked questions. I read fiction, non-fiction, even poetry when I was desperate. When I read, I wasn't Carolyn. I was someone else, somewhere else. Some girl with power, or freedom, or even just a safe place to sleep. I also kept a journal. I never wrote about what happened at home. I didn't know how. I wrote about the sky, the sound of wind through trees, the smell of dust in summer. I wrote poems I'd never show anyone. It wasn't about the writing, it was about having something that was mine. Sometimes I would go for long walks. Just around the block or out into the woods behind our neighborhood. I liked the quiet. I liked being alone in places that didn't feel angry. I went to church too. Not because I was told to, I went on my own. Every Sunday, I sat in the back row of a tiny white church down the street. I liked how the pastor talked about grace and love. I liked the songs. I liked the silence during prayer. I wanted to believe in a God who watched over me, who saw everything and still cared. But even then, I had questions I was too afraid to ask out loud. Like, if God was real, why did he leave me there? Why didn't he make my dad stop? Why didn't he let someone see, someone help? I asked one of the church ladies once. She was sweet, always gave me candy and called me dear. When I asked her why bad things happen, she said something about free will. God doesn't make people do bad things, she said. They choose to. I nodded. I even smiled. But inside, I felt like something had broken. I couldn't understand how a God who was powerful and good would just let kids suffer. It didn't make sense. So I stopped asking. I kept reading. I kept walking. I kept writing poems I never finished. And I waited. I waited for something to change. I was 10 the first time I died. I don't remember how it happened exactly. I just remember everything going quiet. One minute I was in my body, hurting like always, and the next, I wasn't. I was above our house, floating. But it wasn't like flying. It was weightless, effortless. There was no fear. No pain. I looked down and saw our backyard, the crooked fence, the dying rose bush my dad never let die. Everything looked the same, but I felt completely different. I wasn't scared anymore. The air felt thick, but not in a bad way, more like the world had slowed down, like it was waiting for something. I couldn't hear anything, not even the wind or birds or my own thoughts. Just silence. The kind of silence that's so deep it feels like a sound itself. Then something happened. A light appeared, not in the sky, not coming from anywhere I could point to. It was just there. Huge, endless, soft. It didn't hurt to look at. It didn't even feel like light in the normal sense. It felt like love. That's the only word I've ever found for it. Love that saw everything I was and didn't flinch. It wrapped around me, inside and out, like I was being filled from the inside. I hadn't realized how empty I felt until I wasn't empty anymore. It didn't speak the way people do. There was no voice. But I heard something. Or maybe I understood something. It came to me like a knowing, you are needed. Not wanted. Needed. That broke something open in me. Back home, I felt like nothing. Like a mistake. But this light, this presence, it didn't see me that way. It didn't care about what I'd done or hadn't done, whether I was good enough or smart enough or brave. It just loved me. I didn't have to earn it. It just was. And for a moment, I wanted to stay. More than anything, I wanted to stay in that light. No fear. No pain. No yelling. Just peace. But the message came again, you are needed. I understood then. I could stay, but I wasn't meant to. I had a reason to go back, even if I didn't know what it was yet. So I made the choice. I said yes without saying a word. The light didn't push me away. It just faded, gently, like it had done its part. Then everything went black. When I woke up, it felt like falling into cold water. My body was heavy again. My head ached. I was lying somewhere, maybe the floor, maybe the yard. I don't know how long I'd been out. The sun was too bright. The air felt thick and wrong. I remember blinking and thinking, why does it feel worse to be alive? I got up slowly and stumbled inside. My legs shook, but something in me felt clear. Like I had touched something real. More real than anything I'd ever known. That day changed me, even if no one else noticed. I didn't tell anyone. Who would believe me? I barely believed it myself. But I knew I hadn't imagined it. I had seen something beautiful. I had felt something that made everything else make a little more sense. And even though I didn't know what it meant to be needed, I knew I couldn't forget those words. They stayed with me. Even through the worst days, they stayed. You are needed. When I came back into my body, it felt wrong. Heavy, clumsy, like wearing clothes that didn't fit anymore. Everything was loud again, my heartbeat, the creak of the floor, even the sound of breathing. The peace I just felt was gone, but I remembered it clearly. Something had shifted. I couldn't explain it, but I knew I wasn't the same. Later that day, my father was in the basement, fixing something on his workbench. I stood at the top of the stairs, unsure if I should speak. My hands were shaking, but my voice came out steady. I want to be baptized. He didn't answer right away. Just kept turning a wrench in his hand like he hadn't heard me. Then he looked up, squinting at me. Why? Because I want to serve God. His face tightened. For a second I thought he might yell or laugh. Instead, he set the wrench down and said, "Go wait in the yard." His voice was flat, unreadable. I did what he said. I sat on the back steps, heart pounding. After a while, he came out and stood over me. "I'll talk to the preacher," he said. Then, after a pause, "Don't tell your mother." A week later, I stood in a small baptismal pool at the church. The water was cool, the lights dim. I was the youngest person being baptized that day. The preacher placed a hand on my shoulder and said the words. I went under. For a brief second, I thought maybe it would happen again. Maybe I'd go back to the light. But nothing came. Just water in my ears and the sound of clapping when I stood up. My father sat in the back pew, arms crossed. He didn't clap. He didn't smile. He didn't even meet my eyes. When we got home, nothing had changed. He was still angry. The house still felt heavy. But I was different. I didn't know what it meant to serve God, not really. But I felt like I had said yes to something bigger than the pain I was living in. I didn't have answers. I didn't have safety. But I had something inside me now, something quiet and steady, like a compass pointing somewhere I couldn't see yet. I was around 13 when it happened again. I'd been sick for days, high fever, body aching, barely able to lift my head. I was lying on the couch in the living room, sweating through my shirt, too weak to move. Everything felt distant, like I was underwater. Then something shifted. It was like falling, but upward. Suddenly, I wasn't in my body anymore. I didn't even realize it at first. Everything was still there, the couch, the walls, the coffee table, but I was seeing it differently. Everything was outlined in thin lines of light, like blueprints. Patterns moved across the air. Numbers, symbols, shapes I didn't recognize but somehow understood. Equations scrolled past me, floating in the air like they were being written by invisible hands. I couldn't explain them, but I understood them. I knew what they meant, how they fit together. The formulas showed how things worked, gravity, time, even emotion. Everything had an order, a design, a purpose. I could see the logic behind everything, but it didn't feel right. It scared me. I'd always struggled with math in school. Now suddenly, I could read the universe like a textbook. I didn't want it. I didn't ask for it. It felt like my brain was being filled with things that weren't mine. I needed my mom. I tried to move toward the kitchen. It felt strange, like walking without touching the floor. I reached her. She was sitting at the table, her usual spot, staring into space. Her coffee was cold. Her hands were still. I stood in front of her and said, "Mom. I don't feel right." She didn't blink. Didn't look up. Didn't even flinch. I waved my hand in front of her face. Nothing. That's when I turned around, and saw myself. Lying on the couch, eyes closed, skin too pale. My chest rose and fell slowly, shallow. I stared at my own body, frozen. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't supposed to be standing here and also lying over there. I felt something tugging me, like a cord pulling me backward. Then everything went dark again. When I woke up, I was back in my body. My head pounded. My shirt was soaked. The room looked the same, but I didn't. I told myself it was just a fever dream. That it wasn't real. But something deep in me knew better. I had left my body. I had seen something I wasn't supposed to understand. I didn't talk about it. I didn't write it down. I just tried to forget. But later, after what would come, I'd look back and know the truth. That moment wasn't a dream. It was a warning. Or maybe a reminder. That the world wasn't what I thought it was. That I wasn't just a sick girl on a couch. I was more. And something was trying to show me that. I was 17 the night it broke me. The bruises on my ribs were still fresh. I couldn't laugh without wincing. I couldn't sleep on my side. That night, dinner was tense, quiet in the way that meant something was coming. My father sat across the table, chewing like the sound of it might hold him together. My mother didn't eat. She just picked at her food like always, eyes on a spot on the wall. It happened fast, like it always did. I said something, nothing big, just asked if Lana had called. That was it. His face changed. He stood up slowly, chair scraping the floor behind him. Then came the punch. Straight to my stomach. I dropped to my knees, gasping, hands on the tile. My head spun. He stood over me, breathing hard. "I don't care if you die," he said. His voice wasn't angry. That's what made it worse. It was calm. Thoughtful. Like he meant it. Then he walked out of the room like it didn't matter. I stayed there for a while, curled up on the floor, my breath shallow. My mom never looked at me. She just stood, picked up her plate, and went to the sink. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I didn't cry. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. I whispered into the dark, "God, please let me die." It wasn't a plea. It wasn't even desperate. It was quiet. Honest. I wasn't asking to escape. I wasn't trying to punish anyone. I just didn't want to keep waking up into this life. I closed my eyes and waited. Not for sleep. For silence. For peace. For nothing. It was the first time I ever truly meant it. It started with pain. Not the kind I was used to, not from a fist or a fall. This was different. It felt like my skull was splitting open from the inside. Sharp, bright, unbearable. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. My whole body locked up, and then, nothing. No sound. No light. No pain. Just, nothing. I wasn't in my bed anymore. I wasn't anywhere. It was a black so deep it didn't even feel like darkness. Just space. Silence. At first, it was peaceful. Like floating in warm water, with nothing pulling me down. No weight. No fear. I felt like I had finally been released from everything that had ever hurt me. Then the peace turned into something else. I was still thinking. Still aware. I wasn't supposed to be aware. I had asked to be gone, not just quiet. But I was here, wherever here was. And I couldn't tell how long it had been. Seconds? Hours? Forever? Panic started to rise in me. Am I trapped? Is this what death is? I tried to move, to speak, but I had no mouth, no body. Just thought, stretching in all directions with nowhere to go. Then something shifted. A presence entered the space, not with footsteps or sound, but with certainty. I felt it before I saw it. She stepped into view, or maybe appeared. A being, tall and luminous, glowing like soft light underwater. Not human. Feminine, but not in the way we know it. Her skin shimmered, not white, not gold, but something between. Her head was longer than ours. Her eyes were large, black, endless. She looked at me like she had always known me. I should have been afraid, but I wasn't. Her voice didn't come from her mouth. It came from inside me. "You are not meant to stay." The words weren't harsh. They felt like a blanket, soft, sure, final. I wanted to ask why. Why not? Why bring me here at all? But before I could form the question, the space around us changed. A screen appeared behind her. Not a normal screen, not a TV or projection. Just a surface that shimmered with images. My life. Scene after scene. Moments I remembered. Others I had forgotten. Me as a child, hiding under the table. Me reading on the porch. Me laughing once with Lana before she left. It didn't stop. The screen kept moving. Me at church. Me walking past a classmate crying in the hallway. Me giving a book to a kid I barely knew. I looked back at the alien. Why are you showing me this? She didn't answer. Just turned her head slightly toward the screen. I watched another scene, me on stage at the school musical. I had one of the lead roles. No understudy. If I hadn't been there, the show would have been cancelled. I remembered thinking at the time, no one would miss me if I disappeared. But here was proof. My presence mattered. My absence would have created ripples. Still, it wasn't enough. I stepped forward. Why? I asked again. Why all this? She didn't speak. But something passed between us, an understanding, quiet but powerful. This wasn't about showing me what I had done. It was about showing me the effect of it. Every small thing I thought didn't matter had changed something. Even the tiniest moments had weight. I turned back to the screen, watching as one small kindness, something I barely remembered, made someone else smile, and that smile reached someone else. A chain. She was showing me the chain. My life wasn't pointless. It was part of something. Something bigger. Something unseen but real. I looked back at her. Her face hadn't changed, but I could feel the shift. She had given me what I needed to see. And then the screen faded. The darkness returned, only now it wasn't empty. It was full. Of possibility. Of meaning. I understood. I wasn't supposed to stay because I wasn't finished. And just like that, I felt the tug again. The same one from before. Stronger now. Pulling me back, fast, like a current sweeping me away. Then, impact. I was back. In my body. And everything hurt. Before the screen disappeared, there was one last scene. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at. A small boy, maybe 5 or 6, sitting on the edge of a dirt road, barefoot and alone. His face was dirty, and his eyes were swollen like he'd been crying for a long time. Then I recognized him. It was my father. Daniel Lin. As a child. He was smaller than I'd ever imagined him. Fragile. His hands were clenched tight in his lap, and he kept glancing back at a house in the distance. Even from where I stood, I could feel the cold coming off that place. He looked like he didn't know where to go, like he didn't belong anywhere. I didn't need the alien to explain it. I saw it all in that one moment, his anger, his control, the way he hurt us. It all started with his own hurt, long before I was born. He had never been taught how to love, how to be gentle. And because of that, he passed his pain to the next person, and then the next. People who cannot love, I thought, were once people who were not loved. That truth settled into me like a stone dropped into still water. Everything rippled from it. I thought about Lana. About how she carried her pain by leaving. About how I had carried mine by staying. I thought about the kids at school who laughed too loud or kept to themselves. I thought about the friends I thought wouldn't care if I disappeared. But they would have cared. I saw it. I saw their tears. I saw the silence I would have left behind. It broke me and healed me all at once. I was connected to them in ways I had never seen. Through kindnesses I didn't remember giving. Through words I barely meant to say. I mattered. The alien had shown me what I couldn't see for myself. That I had value, not because of anything I did, but because I existed. And that was enough. I didn't want to die anymore. I wanted to live, and this time, I wanted to understand what love really was. I came back like being thrown into my body. Hard. My eyes shot open, and I sat up so fast I vomited all over the floor. My head was pounding, my hands were shaking, and my whole body felt like it had been pulled through something heavy and endless. But I was alive. And I knew something had changed. I wasn't healed. The bruises were still there. The fear hadn't disappeared. But inside, something was different. I didn't feel empty anymore. I felt clear. Strong in a way I didn't have words for. That morning, I looked at my father and saw someone I hadn't seen before. He was sitting in his chair, flipping through a newspaper he didn't really read. His face was drawn. Tired. The lines in it deeper than I remembered. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. I just started watching him differently. My father wasn't all fists and shouting. He had one quiet habit he took seriously, gardening. Even when everything else in the house was falling apart, the backyard was always neat. He planted flowers in the spring, trimmed hedges in the summer, picked dead leaves off rose bushes in the fall. His hands, the same hands that had hurt me, handled those plants like they mattered. That's where I started. Every time he raised his voice, I stayed quiet. In my mind, I repeated the same words, "You are a good gardener." Over and over. Not to flatter him. But to focus myself. To hold on to something in him that wasn't cruel. I imagined that thought, those words, traveling through the air like light, reaching him even if he didn't know it. At first, nothing changed. He still yelled. Still scowled. Still slammed his fist on the table if something set him off. But over time, there were small shifts. One day, he started to shout, then paused mid-sentence. His hands stayed in the air, but he didn't strike. He just lowered it and walked away. Another time, he mumbled something that almost sounded like, "sorry," though he didn't look at me when he said it. Months passed. The yelling became less. His eyes softened in moments when he didn't know I was looking. Then one evening, as I was passing him on the porch, he said something I'll never forget. "I feel like you're the only person in the world who loves me." He said it quietly, like he didn't expect a response. I didn't say anything back. I didn't have to. Somehow, without words, he'd felt it. The love I had started sending him, not out loud, not forced, but real. It had reached him. She never said the words, but I heard them clearly. "You are here to love the people no one else will love." That's what the alien, or whatever she was, gave me. Not just a message. A direction. For years, I kept what happened to myself. Not because I was afraid, but because I knew how people would look at me. I told a close friend once. She smiled politely and said nothing, then stopped calling me as much. I mentioned it to a teacher I trusted, and he told me it sounded like a dream. He asked if I'd seen something similar in a book or movie. Even Lana didn't believe me. When I finally told her, she shook her head and said, "You're just trying to make sense of abuse. That's not God. That's survival instinct." But I wasn't trying to explain it away. I wasn't looking for comfort. I know what I experienced. It was more real than anything I've ever touched, seen, or heard in this life. And it changed me. Not instantly, not completely, but in small, steady ways that added up over time. I didn't wake up glowing. I didn't become fearless. I still struggled with anger, with sadness, with everything I'd been through. But I saw people differently. I started noticing pain in places I hadn't before, in kids at school, in strangers on the street, even in my own reflection. I began to understand that most cruelty comes from emptiness. That people lash out because something inside them has collapsed. And love, the kind I felt in that other place, is the only thing strong enough to reach into that emptiness and shift it. I still go to church sometimes. Not because I need answers, but because I want the quiet. I want space to remember that moment, that light, that voice inside me that wasn't mine. I work with teenagers now. I teach English, but that's not really what I'm doing. I'm paying attention. I'm listening for the ones who speak with silence, who show up angry or distant or too loud. I know what those things mean now. I was one of them. I don't preach. I don't talk about near-death experiences in class. But I do my best to live what I was told. Love the ones no one else knows how to love. Even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones. My father died a few years ago. It wasn't dramatic. He passed in his sleep. We were never close in the way I used to dream about, but by the end, we had found something quiet between us. He would ask about my job. I would sit with him while he pruned the bushes. He didn't say much. But he didn't have to. I think he understood. And I had no hatred left for him. Forgiveness didn't mean pretending nothing happened. It meant seeing him as a person who never learned how to stop bleeding on the people who didn't hurt him. People still ask me how I got through it. I usually just say, it's a long story. Because the real story, the full story, is one most wouldn't believe. I died. 3 times. I left this world. I saw things we don't have words for. I met something that was not human but knew me better than anyone ever had. She never gave me a name. She didn't tell me what she was. And I still don't know. I don't know if I met God, or an angel, or an alien. But I do know this. Even in our darkest moments, someone is trying to reach us. Not with punishment. Not with rules. With love. Real love. The kind that changes everything.